Oh, this is a YouTube ground challenge video. The challenge is to use this video, which no, this is to organize ourselves to present this YouTube ground challenge to YouTube to make a virtual representative of ourselves that we're going to make from whatever city or suburb or exception, and we're going to examine which we'll examine as exception nature. Everything is an exception where we are speaking about the body of the species. No, everything is an exception when we are speaking about the body of the individual. Because the body of the simultaneous can only make positive that is also further positive onto and as itself here, but by staying a body, but by staying it through the value of what is simultaneous and can be shown that simultaneously. So, but now we're being shown this through value nature systems increasingly no longer its own, increasingly incapable of being discerned and being expert on it and affording expertise, even simple revelations from the way nature uses ties to value. Conjunction two. That is the increasing value of identity, semi-nature relationship to itself. All parts of the human body are semi-nature relationships to the complete identity of the body. So, boxing must grow, fight, but by the rules. Wrestling by the rules. Martial arts by the rules. Because when one way of fighting, if defended and if realized, even if everyone people lose, everyone wins. The first thing it's about is the fight is how to make the grounds tactically denatured from since semi-ancient times identity of relationship to itself. That can only cause negative value nature progressions, action natures, how to afford, not monetarily. Before while in other words, better than free. It's fact human nature oriented. You look at the state capitol, they have some rocks like this. I don't know, like this big. Then you stack four of them, you get pretty high, and then have a big, impressive beam. Impressive only to eyes that have self-valued suburbs from here to Russia. Since before the founders of Russia were born, since before the founders of America were born. Same thing in China. Same thing in Australia. Their suburbs and the kangaroos will run through. As they do, everyone, including the kangaroos, on a tactically denatured breaching method by a breaching method system. They have, complete possession over the quality of faction, the quality of reactions, and therefore the quality of defenses of themselves to simple points of correlation increasingly relevant that scientists originally still keep increasingly denying. In other words, the people of New York City and people across the globe want and need to demonstrate. They want to know how to speak about properly. I mean, and or not being and having them, when they do speak about it, They don't want to be attached to fake words or people misinterpreting themselves. And so that's why they do this to everyone. But what everyone misses with that is because, we have to show how at all locations, not just physical evidences, setups, so they could use time simultaneously too slow, too fast to get over on forever nature, pretending others simultaneously for the breaching method. Certain kind of victim predator everyone was and is that has been blaming other things, others and or themselves, and there has been roles with the identity theft slash fraud slash slander method against each. And the slander part is important because value, where nature is value, value is nature. And where it has ties to our where it has conjunctive slash hyperconjunctive ties to our syntax nature and into where, into why, into how we are functioning, not just organically, like hyper organically. And this being hyper simultaneous, an identity, the identity that is why and that is how. For example, we are an identity of volume as an individual. Look and at locations, areas, and states, sexes, but everything in demonstration also of the hyper invisible and of the invisible. For example, yin yang, male and female can never part, but the same identity of volume. And goes with alpha and omega because that's, for example, that's exception and exception nature. We are two different physical bodies. The mother has a mite per reading a story, for example, to a kid that a father doesn't have. And a father, for example, has a might to yell that a mother doesn't have. But one of the things everybody missed since some ancient times was why and was his how. Emotions and passions are about the simultaneous. Everyone was missing why and how was his evidence. If you're honest, if you deny it, there's evidence in demonstration, the same thing. The courts and the police forms were a certain type of victim as per roles with and as that everything as it had actually been entrenched in America before our founding parents were even born. Slavery, North and South. See, they have treatments of what is positive and negative. And they left out and they leave out how our founders could tell no lies. They wanted the Constitution unabridged. They wanted it explained how the breaching method had all these laws that if you try to speak up against it, it knows you're trying to speak up against it. And it came after you, torture, hurt you, everyone you cared about, everyone around you. They would do that too at the same time. Test and maintain, measure and maintain, because they also did it through everyone, everyone. So everyone was measuring and maintaining needs to keep, it's shown needs to keep each age of correlation natures actually inherent active and progressive means. Inherent active progressive also with and by the means by two identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. also partially the composition of that which is physically greater than all parts of space slash existence, and while being and having been more finite than it, and while as its value slash value progression bound. So we here at Earth distinctly gather round, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously a hyper relationship, while being a physical relationship, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously to itself. And then further, what that is distinctly that, and that, but that is also how distinctly to space slash existence. While as this, formerly they refer to space and leave out physics, but really we need proper science would understand the needs syntactically, functionally, to be able to discern and to use the revelations that come per how space slash existence are bound. Part space without physics, without material, physical matter, per our perception and demonstration natural, that which we still have left to discern. Because all identity ground locations are tactically denatured. Nobody even realizes that and how, for example, the worms and all the stuff that was supposed to we cleaned up since throw all away stuff, keep the lawns neat. We need to get like some kind of powder. You know what I'm saying? To put and to fast as quick as possible, get worms alive again, change back the nature of the soils. It's not just you feed them, give them the food so they're green. Those worms, every time it rains, worms walk towards water. They walk into puddles. They walked into ponds. They no longer walked into the ponds. The fish didn't have the food sources. They slowly died. Not just because people were fishing on it. Well, while that was happening, they were blaming on other things, others, and or on themselves, even when correctly, exactly with the breaching method wanted and needs. Unceasing breaching method. Not one person has spoken for the value of life like a father or mother, as we're supposed to, with those passions. Even though it's a vast amount of people, it's one database relationship, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, further differentially, in differentially relevant and hyper relevant ways, as an identity, as one identity ground location, where and how, for example, we are to be a country individually, America, hundreds of countries individually, syntactically, have to communicate and about the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures at all locations, areas, and states, originally and still. For example, because of relevant to where and how and to how originally, rather than explaining the criminal and having had been explained the criminal insidiousness as a nature, and where nature is value slash value as nature, relevant to what is hyper simultaneous. That being, for example, to refer to what is distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously. That identity that is present as I lost my train of thought, and I forgot what I titled this video. I don't think anybody's listening to me. Oh, YouTube ground. The challenge. The challenge is to be, we have to. It comes with sound. It has to be simultaneous, so it can't mess up. Can't play games with. We can't just make positives out of negative. Positives plural. We have to, and positive singular. We can't just make a positive out of negative. We have to make a hyper positive out of negative. The only way to do that is to have a base where economic variables and ground variables that left out, exceptions and exception nature. Like, for example, where and how. Some industries associated with slavery, they can't be, entertained as part of the variables of people making positive and negative treatments and opinions and convictions, identity treatments, sequence value treatments, nature value treatments, pretending not to realize that and or not realizing that, and relevant to a whole bunch of things at once. The vaccines to campus dunce was stolen name. So everybody who came through it, everybody knew it. But everybody's blaming other things others are on and or on themselves. Everyone didn't realize it. Everyone's increasingly valuing distinctly how also non-distinctly everyone's valuing. How the real cause of it were blamed on other things other than themselves. But it stayed. They're in the past. Everyone's valuing that part of precedence, part of corrupt precedents and statutes originally, and still was a simultaneously parallel relationship, not just to all formal locations, not just to all database locations since before computers, not just to all sciences locations, not just to all homes, not just to all locations, to uses of that, and per a method that engineered roles with and as that, engineering for its own needs, qualities of fact, treating nature themselves, natures and styles of criminal insidiousness, as see is the opinion / conviction. Or is the counter opinion / counter conviction to where and to how, locations, areas, and states, self-value, the furtherance of criminally foreign influence premises, treatments, usages, simultaneously delusions wrought, simultaneous sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slander, method /S, roles, needs, and nature's usages, because that is increasingly relevant to the one usage by the one method that had employed, for example, black and white usages, then as effectively as it is maintained, they are maintained now, self-valued, how used. And that's relevant, for example, because it is simultaneously effectively being and having been used to keep all the actual proofs of the breaching method's existence, of the increasing value of the existence of it being denied how it is increasingly being and having been employed then, how it's increasingly being exploited now, but through other motivations, nature's needs and interests, through our own vaccines to campus. So the campus name is stolen, the Republic's name is stolen, criminally re-engineered. Every country, individually grouped and together, no matter how they group them, that grouping is tactically ulterior from how same bodies, same individuals, tactical ulterior how we're supposed to be grouped. It will not conform to the positive and negative and identity and title treatments and defenses of them, which are qualities of fact treatment nature defenses. Nature itself won't, per its needs for us to be, demonstrating. In other words, when people go into courts, say during colonization's time, so now we have no one to blame now but colonization. Everyone already blames that all the time because that's true. But it's also where, in other words, it can be narrowed in further than that. The only reason I don't narrow it in further than that, people start blaming things like, greed, and they leave, and then they leave out where and how hundreds of nations with wealth are shared here and there. So they control here and there because we're grouped here and there. And there's what's been fluent through that knew it was going to have to pretend. Everyone just blames the invisible, but still discernible how we're grouped and how that's grouped too. Religions deal with this. Hyper litigation regarding treatments of the law that people can't defend their positive and negative treatments. Hello, and then I don't know how to read. There's this. This is an idea for YouTube ground. In every state, will pick out their 5 most needing, or one location to communicate with the locations, individually grouped and together, where we can put means down that are outside the precedence of and furtherance of criminally foreign influence, formal but not, like legislative processes and their fact treatment nature qualities and opinions and convictions. Again, too, leaving out and having left out simultaneously what's actually recorded. See, like the 9/11, the January 6th Commission, it is being used to offensively investigate things in the open so it can measure and maintain. For example, pretended not realized exploitation of where and how hundreds of countries share also policing here and there, share the education of our kids here and there. And see, that was a part of what was used remotely. Here and there. But where part of where and how it is used remotely is where and how it was self-valued as means maintained and needed to hide, as uses of sides where there is no side. Even though, in other words, they're not supposed to even tell us this, but it communicated by how they how the interbranch react to where and how overt criminal enterprises, the interbranch, all exceptions tied to them, like people, prisons tied to them, military tied to them, databases, stewards tied to them, campuses tied to them, and then just that insidiousness to everyone, and ties to people with next to body dumping spots that never don't even know anything about that, because those body dumping spots are where near like highway entrances and exits, corners of streets, all along routes. They are being and having been employed by the fact treatment nature oriented but ground species engineering of value progression, exploitation method, singular. Just like a company, it can be a singular subject. It is simultaneously increasingly other subjects, names, especially, companies as countries, nations, or territories, A through Z. The species identity of volume was forged to and as identities of titles and volume that are tactically ulterior from that volume science. Where and how we are all native pure, and there is no distinction. I mean, in other words, there was no need to discern. Well, we still don't even have discerned properly. First, for example, because we still don't have American history outside of their time treatments where they're trying to use names and things like that. They're leaving out the predicate acts delivery system method. It's about a breaching method against Native Americans sustained that is fact treatment nature oriented, uses of the ground, use of database relationship, people's names, titles, measured, maintained. It was just opinions and convictions, defenses of uses of words like order and justice as a certain type of victim predator, just like the overt criminal enterprises. For example, they have the words like family used where and how. They, the FBI, overt criminal enterprises, just killers and child abusers and abuses roles, elderly abuses roles. See, for example, even in the suburbs, not by accident, that's that same rat trap that wants to be called a rap trap, by the way, because a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise, if you will. I'm not a police form, not a criminal, not intelligence community, not military. Correlation nature has simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. And when we deal with what employed black and white, that's evidence. A method employed that's evidence. Our nature wouldn't want naturally to do that. That's evidence. See, correlation nature has evidence that are forbid by people fabricating evidences and then giving people, not even giving them time to get evidences. They have the woman, they have people that are who go up to trial. Elaine Maxwell, for example, I believe it was reported on MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News, that and how they were drugging her. See, the court has rules with drugging people, with doctors, and with see, these are courts and prisons that I caught with their patients and criminals even including a principal child abuser and his campus through time. They have the uses of the family members of the leader of the teachers of the schools of the principals even. You know what I'm saying. And so then they also use this is former director of the FBI Robert Lusk in his defendant capacities. Many people tied to him and to his co-defendants, federal criminals proven in other cases, and recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed further being and having been involved with with evidence reception, racketeering, worsting, war crimes relevant, for example, with people names leading up to the World Trade Center attack and in it, also with their kids. Now they've been involved with identity thefts and frauds, intercampuses. There's a Fred Grouze who sought me out with others to pretend because the interbranch and the foreign and overt criminal enterprises and that other insidiousness has uses by those bound identities. Just like the identities of bodies are bound by an order. In other words, they've been using them remotely since before our founding parents were born when they forced the scale of streets, the design and nature of houses in the suburbs from here across the globe. Tactically, everyone mows their lawn and throws away the grass. They put chemical or whatever to put. Even if they put organic, no humus is going in. It's not in the form for worms to eat. It's not in the form of beneficial bacteria and fungus. It's not in the form for beneficial bugs and insects. Some more negative value nature progressions, acts in nature are demonstrated by nature. Increasingly, the only way to make America great again is to be led by what is native pure. We should have three. The only way we could do this right is to have make sure not one Native American should be homeless. So we should have one platform as an industry that we all support, but it's not ours. We give it to the Native Americans, and we ask the presidents to do executive orders to enable better than free means to do like a circuit. So if anyone, so any of them, so Native American would like that, they jump on and they have that means to overcome that too, because the people in the circuit will be designed to liberate the identity grounds, identity of relationship to itself that is native pure. And then while simultaneously distinctly as the ground and as ourselves, all gather round. But with Santa's elves long lost, so it's kidding. But no, the word species body gets no gift. So we had means to syntactically standing evidences that and how all identity ground locations across the globe are tactically denatured, and they are being and having been used as part of that torture method that kept, forced, tricked, or persuaded countries individually grouped and together to be and stay identities tactically ulterior than native identity. Right? So they went and made torture no. They colluded. The interbranch recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed things they don't realize, but they do but only through extents they have to hide. and has actually recorded uses of their natures and shown means to it, it needs to pretend other already by uses of everything that comes before them and came before them. So increasingly value that having been. You know, no one could speak. Everyone, people use passion and emotions by the word justice, for example, or any word in value. But if they had used it honestly, they would, they would have protracted all usages of all the revelations by, for example, where and how. The exceptions in exception nature were denied, are denied. My arm is killing me. It's wrong. So no one's here. I don't know if you're here. Can anybody hear me? Vaccines.